What is up, everyone? So today I have a TV mount, wall mount to install. It's right here, and I'm going to install it on this wall here in particular, and we're going to go over how to install it and why I chose to install it in the corner. So let's get into this DIY project and see what it's all about. So the first thing you want to do before installing any TV wall mount is decide which wall you want to add it to, whether it's a wall like this or a flat wall, because that's going to determine what wall mount you're going to purchase. So you may be wondering why I chose this corner to mount it to instead of, say, this corner or this wall. Well, when the sun rises, the sun will shine through this window here in particular, and it sets on the back side of the house, so the front of the house will get all the sun coming through. And if it was mounted to this corner or to that wall, what ends up happening is the picture might be kind of hard to see, or you might get some type of glare. So that's why I ruled out these two. Also, I want to put a large picture here, and then it's nice to be able to put the Christmas tree in this corner, just because if I do open up these windows, the Christmas tree is viewable, whereas if it's in this corner, you know, it's kind of hidden and you won't be able to see it unless you're driving by this way. So it's nice to prep this in advance just to have those options available. Another reason why I chose to go into the corner is because I could run one extension cord all the way down the center of the crack here, all the way around, after I put the baseboards in, run it all the way down and plug it into an outlet. If you run it in the middle of a wall, like say over here, you're going to have, you know, one cable coming down, unless you have a box up in this area where you could plug your TV in, your DVD, your games, or whatever into a box outlet. That being said, if you ever decide you want to move that TV, now you're going to have an outlet in the middle of a wall, and I didn't want to do that either. So what I did was I bought an extension cord to go all the way down here. It's going to be white, so it's going to blend in nicely. Go all the way down here and then back, and then I'm going to have on that extension cord, it's going to be 3 outlets, and it's going to have some USB ports for other things, and that's going to be mounted to the actual stand. I'll put some floating shelves in here off of that stand too eventually, and everything can be plugged in, and the only cord you'll have is one single one in the corner, which will kind of blend into that corner anyway. So after figuring out that I'm going to apply it to this wall, the next thing you need to do is decide what type of mount you want. Okay, so the first thing you need to understand is how large is your TV, because that's going to determine the size of mount that you're going to need. So this mount here in particular is going to do anywhere from 50 inches all the way up to, I believe, 80 or 75 inches. We have a 65-inch TV, which will span from this corner to that corner relatively nicely. So before even picking this corner, what you also want to do is take your TV and maybe set it at the bottom just to make sure it fits in the area that you're going to put it in. Okay, so we know it fits there, and there's 2 types of corner mounts. There's one corner mount where you mount it to this wall and it kind of scissors out in the center. Or there's another mount where you can mount it to one of the walls, either or, and then it kind of swings into place. The one that mounts from one side to the other is actually really nice because it ties into both walls and it just pulls in and out. So that's a real nice option. The only reason why I didn't go with that option and I went with the single-sided mount option is because that's all it does is accordion in and out. So you have to mount here, and you have to set your TV out. But if you ever wanted to get behind your TV, it's not like you could swing your TV out of the way to access any of the ports behind it. You would have to crawl up behind and then go about it that way. Also, if you push it too far back and you mount it more closer to the corners, what's going to end up happening is if you have a large TV, it might not swing out far enough for you to clear the corner that you have it in. Okay, so one thing you're going to need is a drill and some drill bits. Okay, so then that way you could pilot these lags So what you need to do is, whatever type of hardware they give you, you need to have a drill bit, so that way you can pilot into a 2x4 before adding your hardware to mount anything, okay? And the reason for that is because if you don't pilot to the size bit that's recommended for, say, a lag or a screw, whatever hardware they give you, you could potentially run into the issue of cracking your 2x4 internally and splitting it. And that's no good for your house structure, nor for your TV mounting, okay? Then you're gonna need some type of socket or ratchet, wrench, or whatever tools you have to apply the lag bolts or the screws. Maybe they have a Torx or something like that. Maybe your TV's lighter and they give you lighter hardware. Whatever they give you, make sure you have the tools to apply it, okay? If you don't have a level, sometimes they give you something like this in the package. If you're doing home renovation stuff and a lot of DIY projects like mounting your ceiling fans and, you know, maybe your picture frames or stuff, make sure you buy tools that will last you for that stuff. Don't rely on this type of stuff to get you by. Maybe that's fine in a pinch, but definitely buying better quality tools because it'll suit your needs for projects to come. This one here in particular, they also gave me a little wrench like this. It's almost like a spark plug wrench for combustion engines, and that basically helps aid some of this hardware to apply it onto the TV. Not necessarily the hardware for the lag bolts that I'm going to use. So keep that in mind. They do supply some tools to an extent. So if you're looking for a good level, Klein is a decent level and it's inexpensive. So that's why I highly recommend Klein, just because it's both professional and consumer available. So anyone could basically get this and have a good quality product. This here in particular is a zircon stud finder. I don't like, even though this is a reputable brand, I don't really care for this type of stud finder, only because it could give you false readings behind the wall. So if it hits something dense, it may read it as a stud, or it could just be off as far as finding studs. What I do recommend in replace of this is a super high powered neodymium magnet, if you could get one of those, or buy the stud finder with the magnets that are built into them. And then basically all you do is run it across your wall until you latch on to a head of a nail or a screw, and you'll know that the stud's behind that, okay, in line with that. And the reason for that is because the sheetrock has to also mount to a stud. Make sure you don't drill into that exact spot. Drop down a little bit, maybe a couple of inches, because you don't want to put your lag bolt right into another screw because it's not going to go in, okay? So keep that in mind. And then lastly, you're going to need a tape measure and a pencil, just so that way, since I want this to be even with this window and this window, right in the center for the display, we're going to need to measure, you know, the width of this window and where it comes down to meet the center, so that way I could draw a line here and then find out from that line to the height of where I need to put my first bolt, and then measure down from there to put my second bolt, and then over and so forth. Okay, so tape measure is going to be needed and a pencil, just so that way you can still wipe off the line after you're done, because it's just graphite. You don't want to use Sharpie or anything because that's going to be more permanent. So I'm going to mount it to this corner of the wall, and the reason for that is because when you walk in through the door, say the TV was a little bit out from the wall for whatever reason, we didn't want it to touch the wall, then you would be able to look down this wall and see a completely blank wall, and it'll look like the TV's floating. If that mount was mounted over here and it cammed out this way, then what would end up happening is you could potentially see that mount. So since no one could come in from this side and look this way, it makes the most sense to mount it on this wall, just so that way you have that ability to bring it out from the wall and you won't be able to see the bracket. So to get the middle of the window, what I did was I measured from the top to the bottom, right, and that was 30 inches, and then I divided that in half, which was 15, and then I measured from here to the top of the window where I measured from, and then added that to the half, and that basically gave me this, which is 35 and a half. Okay, so this is what I like to use, neodymium magnets. Okay, and I got two markings here. Okay, one here, one here. This is my vertical line, horizontal line for the middle of where I want the TV, okay, as a reference. Then all I do is take these magnets until I find something where it magnetizes to. So right here, there's a screw head, okay? You can turn it up on in and find them, okay? So now that I know there's a screw head here, all I do is go all the way down to where my horizontal line is, make a mark. Then I search for another screw head, okay? There's one right here, okay? And then all I did was go up to my horizontal line and make another mark. So I know as long as I'm in between these two marks, I know that's where, somewhere where the stud is, okay? Just because that's offset. If they were straight in line with each other, then you would only need one vertical line. Same thing over here. All I did was look for the magnetized head, found it here, went straight down, drew a line, looked for another spot right here. There's a screw head here, went down and made a mark. And that's why these are not consistent in width, just because they're not going to be perfectly aligned as far as where the drywall screws went. But at least I know as long as I'm between these two marks, I'm center. One thing you need to take into consideration is the size of your TV, okay? If it's mounted over here like this and the pivot's way out here, that means that this arm could cantilever out like this and give you more depth, because it doesn't have to extend from here out, okay? So if I did mount it like this, it would actually allow me to extend my TV further out if it's super huge. But if I stuck it in like this, now you have from here to here, that's wasted as far as distance is concerned. Okay, so what we need to do first is make sure we mount our TV on the floor, press it up against the wall as far back as we could go, right? After we found out where our studs were. That being said, you want to measure from this wall to this corner and from this wall to this corner to make sure it's perfectly aligned. From there to there is 35 inches, and from there to there is 35 inches. And that gives us this gap here. Now, since we have this gap, we notice we have a mark here for stud. Of course, there's a stud in the corner, but we can't use that. Stud here and a stud here. Well, this one is all the way towards the corner of the TV, okay? So if you go straight down, it's close to the TV. Now that's going to change the way we can mount the bracket, and I'll show you right now the options you have. So they give you this template in order to locate the holes on your TV. So once you have it aligned, you could basically align your holes and use this as a guide if you don't have two people to hold the actual mount. And they also give you double-sided sticky tape on it, so that way you could just stick it to the wall. So keep in mind, the 7/16 drill bit that they recommend is for the anchor by itself, or the lag by itself, the lag bolt. If you decide you want to run these anchors in your drywall, you'll need to run a 3/8 drill bit for this size. Just keep in mind, those aren't great. It's best to make sure you put it directly in wood, at least 2 of them. The other 2, if you decide to use the other anchors, because say you want it deeper in this way and you had nothing to lag it to, then you could use the drywall anchors for 2. Just keep in mind that any type of movement could, you know, pull this out and start working it loose. So make sure when you're drilling this, the length of the bolt is the length of your drill bit, and take into consideration stuff like this. So when you drill, it's not going to go as deep, so you might have to extend your bit out a little bit to account for that. So after you have it like this, you also have this corresponding piece with the 2 screws and that lug up there. That lug basically sits in this piece right here. So this lug corresponds with that. It slides down, and then you put the 2 screws through this area. So here's how the mount should look when it swings back. Okay. On the back side here, these screws could be loosened up, and this whole thing could pivot on that little lug there. So it could pivot in case you, for whatever reason, you have too much sag out here, or you didn't get this squared up. You could kind of help square up your TV, or if you want to rotate it, you could do that from side to side in case these brackets aren't bent correctly, and then square it up by loosening these two and shifting this like this, swinging it, and then tightening it. Also, you have your tilt feature here, where you could tilt it down if you don't want a straight TV and you want it to lean a little bit forward. So these pieces here are safety latches with one screw. You need to remove this in order to install this onto these. So basically it's going to hook, and then this is going to clasp over, and you put the screw in just so this can't bounce out and fly off. So since the holes on the TV are embedded in there, they give you a few different sizes here, and I'm going to have to use these because these are not long enough. They just don't reach. So I have to use these, and these, as you can see, the thread starts there, but I have all this gap, okay? So I'm going to have to use these spacer blocks because I don't think these spacer blocks are large enough. So I'll have to use spacer blocks just to accommodate, not necessarily a bulge difference, but just to accommodate the depth of the mounting screw, unless I go in and cut these two sides. And that's also an option. But if you have a different TV that requires, say, these bolts, and you did cut them, well, now you got to go buy new bolts. So it might be just best to add the blocks just in case you need to buy a new TV and that TV has a different backing. So this is what it should look like. I left the base on just until I finish mounting it, and then I'll take that off because it actually helped in setting this up. And then as we make our way around to the backside, as you can see, it hooks here, and then these come around to lock it in place, and then you screw them in. Okay. Before tightening these safety latches, you want to make sure you slide it from left to right wherever you want it. I decided to measure from here to here and center it on this mount. If you need to adjust it one way or the other, you can. That's why you have this ability. So here's what we got after mounting the TV. This is basically what it looks like, and the cable management and stuff as well. So this is just a view of it after everything was installed. Now let's get closer and see what it looks like from the back. So as you can see down here, basically what I did was I put this anchoring point in first, and I pulled it all the way to the top, up here, anchored the top, and I cinched up on this, and then put the final tightening on it to hold this in place and up and close to the wall. Okay, now let's get into the details of this piece. So as you can see, there's this extrusion piece in the center, which fills this void in, which helps keep this pressed up against there nicely. And then basically this cover goes over the top like such, and then pushes in to secure it in place, and keeps everything all nice and hidden. So eventually I'm going to take this off. I bought some dual lock Velcro, or it's not Velcro, but it's called dual lock. It's similar to a Velcro or a hook and loop, and I'm going to put it on the back of here and stick it to this piece here, or maybe the back side of this, just to get this up out of the way and not have it so flimsy. Even though this TV doesn't really move, it gets set in one spot and it's left alone, but just to make things a little bit cleaner. Now to touch base on my Wi-Fi setup, since everything's wireless, is my deco unit here. I don't want this chilling out in the living room, so I'm mounting it to the back up here so it's hidden and out of the way. And this will be my power supply unit, and this will be tucked away and nicely placed. So to mount my deco unit, I ended up designing this platform here, and basically it's gonna ride this channel like this, and then I put a magnet which is 1.25 inches in diameter that I picked up on Amazon. So I picked up a few flat magnets, they're like 1/4 inch thick, and I made it get as close to the bottom. I think it's like 60 thousandths away from the bottom, just to keep this magnetized to this post here, and won't allow it to tip over. And then this channel just keeps it from rotating.
The deco unit itself is pretty stable as is. So as you can see, it kind of centers up as long as it's flat. So on this piece here, no high walls are needed, just because it shouldn't be flipped out, and this should stay pretty stable. So this is what the mount looks like. As you can see, I can't pull it off. It takes some effort, and it wants to clamp down like right there, wants to pull in, and it's sturdy. So it has a flat base and some prongs just to keep it from sliding. The magnet's not designed to clamp down the deco. It's just made so it doesn't slide off when you move the TV in and out. If you're interested in any of the things I made, my contact information's in the About page. Reach out to me. And that's going to complete today's video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. It's greatly appreciated. If you want to see content like this and other content I'll be posting in the near future, consider subscribing. Until next time, I'll see y'all in the next one.